Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about 6 body weight exercises that you can do at home for the legs, guys, for the legs. And I think this is a topic that can help a lot of people. We're all stuck at home, unfortunately, unless this whole situation has passed already. But we shouldn't not train our legs just because we're stuck at home. So let's just jump into the exercises. Number 1, the body weight squat. I mean, obviously this is going to be in there. But if you guys are just starting to get into working out and you're not really good at squats, it's a good time to practice. You got a lot of time at home to train this movement. Now I can go really in depth on how to squat in the future if that's a video you guys are interested in. But just for simplification purposes, make sure you're squatting down to 90 degrees, your back is flat, your knees aren't caving in, and we're just going to squat down and come right back up. Now for a lot of you that's going to be really simple. So what we're going to do instead is make it a little harder. Now we're going to go down and do pause squats. So every time you go down to the bottom of the squat, I want you to count to 5, okay? Really pushing those knees out and squeezing those glutes and steadying yourself at the bottom. This is really going to work on your stability in those quads and the hips and the glutes, especially at the bottom portion of the movement. Moving on to the split lunge, one of my favorite exercises. Now, there is a ton of lunge variations and I can go into detail about those in another video. Today, all we're gonna do is the split lunge. So get into a nice split stance, and all you're gonna do is take that back knee and control its descent on the way down to the ground. That front knee should not be caving in. It should be tracking with the toes, following the foot straight out. As you descend, you should make sure that the glute on the back leg is tight and flexed, and the hip on the front leg is flexed as well. If you're feeling really shaky and everything throughout this movement, then you really need to practice stability in this range of motion. Feeling your torso lean side to side means that you need to keep your core nice and tight, and if you're feeling off balance, really try to stabilize through those glutes. Your front foot should be pointed forward, and you should be on the ball of your back foot. So we're not just falling down to the ground, we're controlling that movement, tapping our knee on the ground, and coming right back up. So once you got this down, 12 to 15, no problem. Go ahead and take that back foot and raise it up, just like this. Now, you're getting quite a bit more depth on that back foot, and you're gonna need a lot more strength to push through that. Definitely a great exercise at home. If you're doing this lunge and your back knee is basically touching your heel, your stance is not wide enough. Widen out your stance. It's kind of a common mistake. A lot of times people feel like their stance is wide enough, and then when they start going, it isn't. Do this especially if you feel some pain in the knee. Alright, next up, let's talk about the Cossack Squat. So to do this movement, basically you're going to just get a nice wide stance. Your toes should be pointed forward, and you're going to start to lean to one side, sit down into that hip, and get a nice stretch in the opposite leg. The depth is really going to depend on your mobility, so get as far down as you can. Push through that bent leg, return to the starting position. If you feel like you can't get down very far, just over time work on your depth in this movement, okay? Once you come back up, you're just gonna switch over to the other leg and do the exact same thing. The straight leg, the toes should be pointed forward, but if you're wanting to work really on your flexibility with this movement, then you can pick that straight leg's foot up and turn it up just to work on stretching the hamstrings and the inner thighs. Now, once we have that movement down, we're gonna go into a nice sliding variation. Now, you don't have to have floor sliders to do this. You can just have a hard surface and something slick to use on that foot, or just your socks. The difference between this one, instead of already having that leg position, you have to mobilize into it, which is really gonna put some stress on your muscles to do this. I do like this version a lot, and it can really help with your mobility and flexibility. Since we're moving on towards more single leg training, the next exercise is in that arena, the single leg squat. To start this one off, just get a chair, a bench, something sturdy that you can sit down onto, and you're gonna squat down onto that platform. The only difference between the squatting leg and this one is it's going to be closer together to the opposite leg. The opposite leg should be straight out and should be flexed and picked up off the ground. You really wanna make sure you have a regular squat down before doing this, because a lot of the mistakes made in a regular squat can be amplified doing a single leg squat. Really make sure that your knees aren't caving in on that squatting leg, that you're sitting into that hip, and you're keeping that quad stable throughout the movement. Once you've seated into the platform, don't lose that tension in the leg. Press through and stand back up. Something I see a lot of people do incorrectly is they'll get to that seated position and then they'll kind of momentum off to try to get themselves up and out of the hole. You don't want to do this. You're trying to develop strength. You're not just swinging through the movement. Now you can make this harder by lowering and lowering and lowering the platform as you gain strength, and then you can move on to the final version, which is the pistol squat. A very, very difficult maneuver that takes balance, stability, and a whole lot of strength to execute properly. So basically, you're doing that single leg squat without a platform, sitting down to 90 or further if you can, and extending all the way through. If you can get to this point, you can pretty much show off because it's a cool exercise. All right, next on the list is going to be hip bridges. Very simple maneuver, something you should get down if you're new to exercising, because in the future, I'm sure you're going to be adding weight. But lay flat on the ground, your toes are going to be pointed forward, your knees are not going to be caving in, and your heels should be directly under your knees. You're going to push through as tall as you can, squeeze your glutes, you should feel your low back contract. Hold this position for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then control yourself as you lower yourself back down. However, you're not resting on the ground in between. You don't want to lose that tension, and you want to keep those muscles working. So lower yourself down, close to the ground, and then come right back up. For a lot of you, this won't be a very hard maneuver, but if you're new to working out, it's good to train, especially training that low back stability and those glutes. Now, if you really want to work your stability, let's make this a little bit harder. Get a hardwood floor again, something to slide on, post up to the top of the movement, and then extend your legs all the way out, and then bring them back in. This is really going to challenge your stability in your hamstrings, your glutes, and your low back. A little bit more of a difficult maneuver, but definitely great for at-home workouts. And finally, let's talk about the hips. The standing leg raise. All you're gonna do is you can grab a wall, anything. If you need balance, you don't have to do this with a wall if you have great balance. But you're gonna pick your leg up as high as you can, hold that position for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then lower it back down. Again, with this movement, you're not lowering it back down, putting your weight back down, and then restarting. You're lowering it back down to take a little bit of that tension off, and then you're coming right back into it. For a lot of you, this is gonna burn. This is really hard. Most people don't really train their hips very much unless you're like a Taekwondo fighter. But it's really gonna burn. You're gonna feel this. You're gonna hate it probably. But it's really good. Hip stability is very important. Now, if you wanna work on the height on which you can get your leg up a little higher, what I recommend is putting a chair or something out there to rest your foot on, then picking it up as high as you can get on each rep, holding it there for a few seconds, and then lowering it back down. This is really gonna push your hips to raise that leg higher and higher each time, and you're really training that top range of motion, trying to get it higher and higher. The better you get at this, the higher you can raise the platform where you rest your foot, and you can really train that range of motion. So a few other variations of this is just training the isometric, holding that foot out there as long as you can until you fail. A good burnout at the end of this exercise, I would recommend doing it that way. Or another challenging variation is to raise that leg up as high as you can, bend at the knee, and then extend it back out. This is really, really gonna challenge your glute. This is like if you were throwing a side kick at something at the very end of the kick. Really gonna feel this in the glutes, really gonna feel that hip firing. It's gonna be really challenging. Well, guys, that is 6 leg exercises that you can do at home. If you guys got any questions, leave them in the comments below. If this video helped you out, give it a like. If you have any more video suggestions, throw them down below. Subscribe for more video, guys. I hope you're being safe out there. I hope you guys are enjoying your forced time off. And I hope we all get back to a normal life sometime soon. You guys be safe. See you next time.